Excellent. So there may be a few with their cameras off, and if their cameras are off, we won't see them on the screen, but that's all good. So as people are coming in, hello everyone, welcome to another masterclass. Thank you for being so flexible. We've moved on to Zoom for this one. I had a problem with my stream platform last night, which caught me by surprise, and I didn't want this to happen to Kath's amazing presentation tonight. So before I hand over to Kath, sorry, I'm just making sure I haven't left anyone in the waiting room. Just a little bit about, I guess, the housekeeping for tonight. So obviously this is being recorded and it will be shared publicly at some point. Just know that only the speaker is being recorded. So if you have your camera on, you won't be recorded unless you say something. If you don't want to be in the recording, just turn your camera off or write your question in the chat. Sorry, let me let that one. So yes, Kath has got a presentation for us. She is going to talk for roughly 40 minutes on this incredibly important topic. And then if there are any questions, she will answer them. So if you have questions during the conversation, you're welcome to put that in the group chat. Otherwise, you can wait for the end and ask her as well. So just a little bit about this lady who I'm thrilled is talking to you. She is someone who I hugely admire. She has such wisdom and strength and knowledge. And we connected in a coaching capacity as colleagues a few years ago now. And, we could probably sit, Kath and I, and talk about just, I don't know, a lot of cool stuff, pretty much anything, couldn't we? And I'm thrilled that she's here with you today. She is a health coaching holistic physiotherapist on the Sunshine Coast, and she's specialised in many areas of physiotherapy, but her joy is to assist people to thrive, like all of us, with or without chronic diseases throughout their lifespan. So she believes that the devastating effects of frailty cannot be underestimated in metabolic health, strength training, and and movement play a vital and non-negotiable role in maintaining a flourishing life. So we're going to hear today about its effect on function, frailty's effect on function as we age, how the loss of bone and muscle mass contributes to frailty, how anyone can start and continue to exercise while dispelling the commonly held beliefs around resistance training and being strong as we age. So without further ado, I know you can see the presentation. If you can't, obviously let me know, but I'm pretty sure it's right there for you. And Kath is right there for you as well. So I'm going to hand over to you, Kath. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you, Tracey. And thanks for, well, I'm not sure if you asked me to come on. Somehow I got on. But so, yeah, I'm a physiotherapist and a health coach, and I combine the two really as I work. I specialize in physio in aged care. So that really means of helping people who have, for whatever reason or not, entered aged care. Often they are very frail. Often they are, not frail as yet, but obviously when you're sitting around not doing very much in later life and things, it's very easy to become frail. So I combine that with my health coaching business, which is Hebe Health Coaching, Hebe being the goddess of youth. She is the fountain of youth, and really she, to me, means that you can really trust in youth and movement and strength and finding the essence to how you were when you were younger and moving freely. So yeah, I love that sort of analogy of that, but and really, yeah, part of thriving in life is obviously about keeping strong. So what I wanted people to do today, now Tracey's famous considering cup, what I want you to do is to keep this considering cup really close, this Tracey's cup, close to your heart, close in mind, and perhaps maybe a notebook if you want to jot anything down. Any questions, obviously, for the end or in the chat, and jot them down. Anything you think might be interesting, what you think you might consider, perhaps something you didn't know, perhaps something that kind of grate it a little bit, and we can talk about it later. And with this considering cup, I really want you to ask that question of, what would you do? What actually would you do to ensure that your life meant that you had strength over frailty as you aged? So the most important thing today, Tracey, can you just flip that slide? Thank you. These are sort of views of the type of people that I train. And this is what we do. We do exercise, and we do resistance training. And it's not easy for them. Flip again. So the most important message to you today that I really want you to maybe take home is that you have a choice. And choosing and practicing and ultimately achieving strength over frailty is the ultimate art of thriving. And that's why we're here. That's why we're in this group. We want to thrive. And, we've banded together really in a way of actually finding ways that we can thrive. And choosing strength will change the trajectory of your life, because thankfully frailty is not an inevitable consequence of aging, but perhaps it's too common, but it's not inevitable, and I'm very thankful for that, really. So we'll look at frailty and give you some understanding around the concept and what that might look like, and how, as a health professional, might assess somebody as being frail, and understand that frailty involves, multiple systems of the body. And we'll pay attention to muscles and bone health and how this contributes to the presentation of frailty. But look, I'm a physio, and I can talk about muscles and bones and joints and brain till the cows come home, but that's not really what this is about. This is about being able to play with your grandchildren on the floor and put your shopping in the car, to get out of the bath and to cut your own toenails, and to bend over and load the dishwasher and unload it without falling over, to stop yourself falling if you trip. You can run across the road and up the stairs. You can sit on any chair that you might want to sit on, and you can still get out of it. You can wash the floor on your hands and knees and change a tire if you have to. Pull the weeds out without falling over. Mow the lawn. Anything you like. And you can thrive. So perhaps even pop in the chat box if there's anything you think, this is what I want to be able to do as I grow older, and this is my aim. This is why I am going to get stronger, so that I can still do those things. Because it is a choice. And if you're not strong, the chances are as you get older, you will be frail. So there are lots of definitions of frailty. And we don't really need to get too complicated here, but and I think you could probably all recognize one of these frail type people. I'll try next slide. But clinically, it's recognizable by somebody who has increased vulnerability. This results really from a decline in their physiological reserve, and you'll see it as a reduction in their functional capacity. It's when someone's ability to cope with everyday or acute stresses is compromised. So they might have just a bad cold or a flu, or they might, have an injury which perhaps, wouldn't normally affect them, adversity in their life, or it's a bit challenging, and they just can't bounce back. So they can't bounce back to their previous levels of capacity as perhaps when you were younger. So it's distinctly separate from aging, but it is related to aging in some ways, as you can see. And as a physio, I use a criteria. This is Fried's criteria. It's from 2001, and we'll look at a variety of different things. And it really looks at the ability of somebody to cope with everyday life, and they call it their compromised energetics. So we look at grip strength. So you compare their grip strength to other norms of someone's BMI. You'll look at people's energy levels, and you're asking for a self-report. You scale between 0 and 10, and you're asking the person if I felt like everything I did was an effort, so between 0 and 10. I couldn't get going today. You score between 0 and 10. Your walking speed. So you time someone's walking speed over a 4-meter scale, and you're looking at the pace, and you're comparing that to average. Someone's low physical activity, and you just ask somebody, really, what did they do that day? And you're looking at, how active was that person? Did they only get out of the chair if they absolutely needed to get out of the chair to go to the toilet or something? Or are they getting out and actually doing other things too? Then we look at unintentional weight loss. So the parameters they look at more than 10 pounds, which is about 4.5 kilos in the last year. So that's really maybe about whether someone's thriving, whether they're able to feed themselves. So it could be lack of nutrition, or it could be muscle loss as equally. You flip the slide. As you can see, this involves multiple systems and signs and symptoms. They're physical and cognitively and psychological as well. And they come obviously with risks of falls and harmful things going on that you can't bounce back for. Increased care needs, somebody helping with shopping or something like that. Disabilities that, when you fractures and things, and often, unfortunately, premature death. So without doubt, there is a reduction in the quality of life. And this doesn't mean that you have to be old to be frail. And it's entirely dependent on your physiological state and your ability to bounce back from adversity. So the great thing for me really is, once I've done these objective tests on people, I know what's missing. So I know that perhaps their grip strength is low, or their walking speed, or the level of activity and things. And once I know what's lacking, I can help somebody make gains in that side of things. And often you can make really, really significant gains with people. And for some people, when they're at a really, really low ebb, it doesn't take much. I think people on the whole think it takes a lot to get fit. Well, if you're not very fit, it really doesn't take much to it. It just takes doing a bit more than you were doing before. So I think that can be quite a scary thing. But frailty is dynamic, and it can progress either way. So you can get frail, or you can recover from some frailty. And we need to make sure that it's towards strength rather than towards frailty. So I alluded to this at the beginning. What got me involved in this talk originally? Well, I made a comment on one of Tracey's posts about the lack of recommendations for resistance training, really, by health professionals, particularly for osteoporotic and sarcopenic and frail people, because health professionals love to tell people to walk. And it's like it's the only show in town, and we're a bit safe if we tell someone to walk. And I don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't like walking. I just don't think it's everything, and I don't think it's enough also for this kind of presentation. So slip across. But there isn't a lot of new clinical evidence to support the use of resistance training for what we're going to describe really as osteosarcopenia. So it's osteoporosis as being decreased bone mass, but also sarcopenia. And that's the decrease of the skeletal muscle mass that someone has, and the function and the strength. And this contributes really to the complex presentation for a lot of frail people. So a little bit about osteoporosis and sarcopenia first. So can you flip Well, that's your sarcopenia slide. So that just really highlights about, that mixture of those two terms really is that loss of muscle mass and the reduction of the bone, which then gives you these are increased risks of fractures and falls and sitting around doing not so very much and disability. Maybe click across again. Yeah, so that's healthy bone. Like your arm bone, so like your humerus. It's not, as some people might think, it's not solid. It's not a piece of wood that's hard and rigid. It's alive. It's naturally bends and twists and compacts a little bit. And it's like kind of an interlocking scaffolding pattern. And it's built for strength. It's built for load. And it needs nutrition. It needs a blood supply. And it can replace itself. So we've got special osteocyte bones, which tell osteoblasts to build more bones and osteoclasts to break down and reabsorb. So it's constantly mechanically, reabsorbing and getting stronger as well. So if you just remember what those images look like, and then we flick across to the next one. So we've got normal bone, and then we've got osteoporotic bone. It's, we'll lose mass of those bones. So we'll lose the structure. And that's when it becomes more reabsorption is happening than build-up of bone. So it's kind of this mismatch. So a reabsorption is greater than creation. Look, there are lots of different definitions. This is, funky definition by Canis, but they're progressive, systematic skeletal disease characterized by low bone mass and microarchitectural deterioration in bone tissue, with a consequently increase in bone fragility and susceptibility to fractures. And, it is. These bones do become more susceptible to fractures, and particularly in places like the vertebral column, hips, wrists, things like that. These load-bearing bones. So many people just associate this breakdown of structure because of the menopause, loss of hormones. But it's actually really interesting is that it can be driven metabolically. It's not just hormonally. There are different conditions and or nutritional states where obviously osteoporosis would be quite prevalent. So across again. And we know that bones can repair and heal, and they respond to load and to exercise by stimulating the bone mass to accumulate. But here's the crunch. The bone needs to be exposed to mechanical loading exceeding the experience during normal everyday activities. So if you're doing just normal everyday activities at low intensities, you are probably not going to be propagating your bone mass as you get older. So, your maximum bone mass really gets to its height at about 30, and then it starts coming back down. And that obviously, like we've said, it depends on many different things about how quickly it comes down, which is also why it's a bit worrying in young people right now who are not running around and exercising and things, because goodness knows what their starting point will be for bone mass. We just don't know. But that's how the bone is affected when we do resistance training. So just to try and kind of make it clear about why that happens so here's my biceps. All right, so I can bend and straighten my arm to contract it and lengthen the biceps. And have you ever thought of the way the muscle actually does affect the bone? Because it's actually plugged in at the top of the humerus and at the bottom into the radius there, as you can see in the picture. It's got this like fibrocartilage sort of spreads out, and it spreads into the bone. So the top right picture shows you that little square in the middle where you've got your tendon goes into a fiber cartilage, and then it actually plugs straight into the bone. So you can imagine if you're flexing your biceps a little bit, you're actually going to be pulling on the bone because of where the insertion comes in, and it pulls it and it twists it and it compacts it. So you obviously do need to do this, lift a bit more than a teacup. You do need to be lifting a little bit of weight, and it needs to exceed your normal daily activity. So across, and I think the link between resistance training and improved bone health is very poorly understood, perhaps even by health professionals. And most people get jumping up and down. Yeah, I can see how that affects my bones. But the combination with resistance training really is that missing piece of the puzzle. And it really does show significant impacts on your bone mass when you combine the two. And when you understand that concept, I think maybe the decision to start some resistance training might be a little bit easier. And who knows, like when you can visualize something, that we know there's lots of studies about visualization. And who knows, once you can visualize, if you're actually doing a biceps curl, actually, I know what's happening here. I'm pulling on the tendon, which is pulling on the bone. My bones are getting strong as well as my muscles. I mean, who knows what effect that has as well, because our bodies are pretty amazing. And I think we shouldn't underestimate this power of the visualization as well. So across again, so the principle of loading exercises in our daily activity applies to muscles as well as bones. And in order to build muscle mass and strength, we need to use our body weight or free weights or machine weights or bands or reformers for Pilates. For activities that stress and overload our muscles enough so that they make a difference. Okay, and again, I love this this thought. This is actually from a position statement brought out in 2017 by the Exercise and Sports Science in Australia on exercise prescription for the prevention and the management of osteoporosis. How cool is that? Resistance exercise has been highlighted as the most promising intervention to maintain or increase bone mass or density. So what do we do? Well, we know that not all exercises are equal, which takes me back to the walking bit. There was a meta-analysis in 2013. So it looked at multiple articles about the effects of walking on bone density. And it actually came up with the fact that regular walking has little or no effect on prevention of bone loss. They thought this could be attributed to the fact that the load is insufficient, the rate or the distribution of what's happening to stimulate bone cells to adapt. So although regular walking can have amazing effects on aerobic fitness, adiposity, and other cardiometabolic factors, on its own, it doesn't optimize skeletal health. Across, Tracey. So for impact, we need to do something a bit more, preferably something moderate to high, although it doesn't need to be scary. I mean, like dancing, skipping, jogging, jumping, hopping. The bottom step of your stairs, just jump onto the floor. Step back up again, jump onto the floor. It doesn't have to be difficult. And it obviously depends on the individual too. We have to highlight that because obviously to some individuals, taking your feet off the floor is quite challenging. But add some resistance exercise to this training and you're doing everything you can. Again, we need to provide sufficient mechanical loading to stimulate muscles and bone cells to proliferate. Perhaps just a little bugbear of mine. We need to be mindful a little bit about the language we use. I think when you communicate about frailty and osteoporosis and sarcopenia and weight loss and stuff, I think these disease conditions can be quite fearful for people, and they can have devastating consequences to even have conversations, because I think some of perhaps they're not heard but they're actually communicated very poorly. And also, I don't believe that we should use fear to get people to exercise. Never bend your back. Constantly telling you when you break your hip how quickly you're going to be dead. I think that, to me, that isn't a good thing to do. And I've seen many people stopped in their tracks, actually, about that kind of stuff. The Royal Osteoporosis Society, if you flip across, they love this strong, steady, straight thing, and they come up with the weak bones can cause the spine to collapse. I mean, I don't want to see, yeah, it may be true, but how helpful is that as an image of, like, if your bones are weak, your spine's going to collapse. Like, you're not going to do anything if you think your spine seriously is going to collapse. And nobody's spine is going to nothing, So I think, fear. It shouldn't really be that driver. I like strong, steady, straight as much as pushing resistance, and for the strong and steady being about balance and things. But the straight side of things, keep a straight back, fear of damaging it if you bend. Kind of just a bit of an anecdote. I once treated a lady, and she was in my clinic, and we'd done our treatment, and she went to put her socks back on, and I thought, she's just going to bend down and pick a sock off the floor. She got her toes, and she scrunched her toes over her socks and brought her foot up to a level where she could take her sock out of her toes. And of course, being a little bit, it's like, what are you doing? And she said, oh, they told me 20 years ago I shouldn't bend my back. It's like, what do you mean? She said, well, I've not bent my back for 20 years. She said, the surgeon told me to never bend my back because my disc might pop out. And this lady had spent 20 years of not bending her back because I thought her disc would pop out. So, it is really real. People hear these things and they carry on. So, she was in a bad way, and she was osteoporotic because she hadn't actually used her body and flexed through her spine in the normal movement patterns. So, I just don't like, particularly when fear is used. I think that's the last one. So what do we do when people are frail? Well, with my residents, I suppose I'll let you know, in my aged care facility, I look after 70 people. We exercise every single one of them to make them stronger. Some are frail, some are certainly at risk of being frail. We just work at whatever capacity they're at. I run group exercise classes, circuit classes with stations where we have 90 seconds on each. We do squats and weights and lunges and step-ups and push-ups. We do monthly challenges. We just did the mental health challenge of push-ups. The residents did over 3,000 push-ups in 1 month. They did them against the wall or leaning on a counter or whatever, and we had a massive morning tea afterwards. We then did a month of squats because they wanted to carry on, and then we did a month of sit-ups in chairs and things like that. And we go around. We walk in the sunshine. We get outside. We go up and down slopes. We're in the countryside. We've got an avocado orchard, which we walk around. We go sideways. We walk backwards. We do all these things. We hop over tree roots. We do these things. They are risky. Yes, they are risky. But without some risk in life, I really think that, they actually think it's pretty cool. We've got a mulberry tree. I took someone to go and pick mulberries today, and he fell into the tree, and he, is reaching up and stuff. It's fun. He loves it. So, we do the things. We do the things to make people thrive. And these are guys in their 80s and 90s and ladies too. And quite frankly, if they can work on their strength and frailty, what would you do? What would you do for that? So I think really, I believe it starts with knowing yourself, what you enjoy and what you've tried before. Are you a team player, or do you like to do something individually? Is there a cost factor? How much time can you allocate? Are you giving yourself the time, or are you just pretending you haven't got enough time? And how do you feel about going to the gym? There's so many different types of gyms. There are lots of people who can help. There are physios, there are exercise psychologists, physiologists. There are, there's anyone that you like, Pilates instructors. Perhaps it's all actually quite overwhelming. Perhaps it's like, I know, perhaps I should or could or would do something, but I'd say start small. But start with something. If it is walking, cool, go for a walk. But you walk up the hill a bit faster, turn around, walk backwards. Realize that, once you've got started, maybe you do need to progress a little bit more. So look forward to it. It's the time for you to thrive. If you don't like it, choose something else. And maybe enjoy the social aspect. Maybe you need to do it with someone else and, buddy up. Or it may even just help you sleep a bit better. But, celebrate your wins and challenge yourself. And make the choice to be strong and not frail. Because you know what? Your 80-year-old self will sure thank you when you are strong. So thank you very much for listening and bearing with my very poor techno head.
I think you did amazingly well. I was too busy taking notes to see you, tell me to swipe. So I'm sorry, I was a bit slow.